my whole thing is this. So you had a board come out. I think you're the first person to really try to change the skateboard in a while. Like actually try to change the skateboard. It's not like you were doing a gimmick or anything. You were like, I think the skateboard could be improved. This, and this. And you ended up coming out with something that was pretty jarring to most skaters. Like it looked very different. It had like weird cuts in it and stuff like that. And there was like, you could literally just Google Andy Anderson skateboard setup and there's like 20 videos of you explaining what it does. Every little nook and cranny does something. Well, it's interesting to me that you now have a new shape that, in your opinion, it's improved on the other shape, correct? Or is it just different? That's my first question.
Well, the main reason for the new shape was I wanted to experiment with the sizing.
Sizing, okay.
So I wanted to try a smaller, shorter size. And I was like, if I'm gonna do that, I wanna try a whole new shape. One of the main things that pushed me to get a new shape was the training for the Olympics. It was more like 3 years where my setups were cookie cutter exactly the same. Same wheels, same risers, same bearings, same grip tape. Or yeah, I could say I was bored, but like I wasn't riding a setup I would ride. But 56 millimeter wheels, the wide cuts, not my favorite for doing any street stuff. So out of the Olympics, I was very frustrated and felt kind of in a cage and then wanted to come up with something new. And then at the Olympics, I did a varial heel melon in my run. And my board was backwards, mid-run. Then I skated 15 seconds with my board backwards and then did another nollie. I did a nollie varial heel.
To turn your board around.
Right, and I was just like, why is my board ever backwards?
It is interesting on like with a skateboard that has like not twin shapes, you're kind of tying a knot and you have to untie it to do your next trick unless you're very comfortable skating with a big, like your nose is your tail, which I never did. Like I have specific things for me, like I do nollie stuff off my nose, I do switch stuff off my nose, and then regular fakies off my tail. And to like untangle that, I have to plan lines around that. Like, okay, if I'm gonna do a big flip right here, well then I gotta do this trick to turn it around. Or if I do like a hard flip right here, I have to do this trick to turn it back around to complete the line.
Right.
Now, you know, I'm not a fan of the twin shapes because the twin shapes are always two tails. That's my issue with them. And I like big noses, that's the big thing. But this is kind of an in-between hybrid of like twin nose slash, like they're kind of like in between noses and tails, aren't they?
Well, my last board, the tail was a common nose.
Yeah, it was like big.
I mean?
That's what I really liked about it.
I like big tails. Experimenting, right? And like I had all these features in the tail and all these other features in the nose. Like for example, the tail, the square tail made it so difficult to do pogos, but the nose was perfect for it. So if I want to do tricks like carousels where I'm flipping like from there to there.
Yeah.
I'm going from either a good pogo to a gnarly one or a gnarly one to a good one.
Yeah. That one was more, so your other board, I always kind of looked at it as just like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
Like it had something for everything. This is more like coming as close to everything for everything as you possibly can, like on both sides. Like making the best thing to pop off of and also stall on, but on both sides. Is that how you feel that this board is? Because that's like my interpretation of it, because I was watching you sort of figure this shape out when you were trying out different ones. You're like, oh, this is too pointy, this is too this trick doesn't work here. Like it seemed like you tried to make the perfect like nose tail hybrid, basically is how I look at it.
Yeah, nail or toes.
The nail or toes? Nails and toes?
Toenails.
Oh, toenails, that's what you call the fucking board.
My other board, you can't make anything that's all positive. There's always a negative, but usually one outweighs the other. But there was one negative of my other board, which was in the hips. It created a weak spot for chipping, right? And then that's just like tough.
What's up?
What's up, man?
What's going on?
Oh, we're filming a video on my new board.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Kid's about to come out in a little bit, so.
Yeah, we'll skedaddle.
I really wanted to experiment with having rounded rails so that there's no like smack.
Oh, so is that why it's like semi-football shape?
Yeah.
Like it's semi-football shape, not for the sole intention, but one of the main intentions is so it doesn't chip.
No, that was the sole intention.
That's so funny. That's like the last thing that I would think someone would make a football shape for. I looked at it as more surface to land on, but it's still squared out over your trucks. Like that's what I like about it.
The other thing in comparison with the other shape is the other shape has this very Q-tip style, where the weight is out here. With a football, the weight's in the center. So you can imagine like a straw with marbles. Like if you have a straw and there's marbles on either end, if you want to spin the straw, it takes more force to start the spin. And when you want to stop the spin, it takes more force, like the straw might bend or something. But if you have the straw and then the marbles are in the middle, it's really easy to start and stop
Yeah.
lateral spins.
I just imagine for 360 flips, it's so centered, it's probably...
Oh, for 3 flips, it's so good. And
Yeah.
this is why you see me doing so many 3 flips.
Yeah. And they spin like very comfortably on the same axis, it looks like.
Right.
Like you never get any like weird flaily ones.
And like if you look at old school boards, they have big tails, small noses, which makes tray flips super awkward. And then when you look at the current popsicle stick boards, they have the large nose and small tail.
Yeah.
And that helps with tray flips.
Because the weight's in the front and it'll whip it around.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I wanted to keep it in the middle, so it's like, I've always wanted to keep it in the middle. I don't want it to be displaced. Why would I displace it?
Yeah.
Unless there's a huge reason to displace it for a specific trick. I think it should be balanced.
Right, you have the squared off tip.
Yeah.
Why specifically the squared off tip?
So this shape is based off of my last tail
Uh-huh.
after a month of skating.
Is that when you felt like it was like at its best?
Yeah, well, the board was designed, my last shape was designed to turn into a better and better board as you skate it. Well, most boards come at their peak performance, and then as you skate it, get worse and worse.
Yeah.
So that was a huge part of the longevity in the board and such a stuff. But so this shape was based off of my tail after I broke it into what I'm skating.
Yeah.
And more specifically, like when you're designing boards, you design them in segments, right? So you design half of the board, and then the other half is mirrored.
Yeah.
So I would just take the half of my tail that I liked,
And then you mirrored that.
and then you mirror it. And then when it's symmetrical, you mirror it this way and this way. So really, you're only designing a quarter of a board.
So basically you took your favorite aspect of your old board at your favorite point of skating your old board and then just mirrored it in 4 corners to make your new board.
Exactly.
So it's like your favorite parts of your old board just as a whole board.
Yes. Oh no, no stress, dude. We're just walking around. It's not our neighborhood, so. The tail of my last board was really good for this style primo flip. You're flipping this way. And the nose was better for this style. And this one is like in the middle of them both.
I'd like to appreciate the fact that we got kicked out talking about skateboards.
One thing I wanted to talk about was the graphic. Oh, you can't really see it.
He had deck rails, but he took them off for a specific trick, but it's like, it's the top half of your old graphic, but flip-flopped.
Yeah.
Right? Like almost like a playing card.
And I wanted a whole new graphic for a while. I
Yeah.
was like, let's work on this, like, but the ideas just weren't there.
Yeah.
And it, like, imagine, it just was so much better to have this.
It's funny because it plays into like, I took my favorite part of my old board.
Right.
So the squared off nose is inspired off of your tail. Can you tell me like the point of having it squared off though? Like it's not completely squared, it's not flat. It does have like an oval to it, but like why this?
The reason it's not perfectly flat is for pogos. So, because when you're in pogo, you like some play there, and in Casper as well. When it's perfectly flat, there's corners that it catches on.
Yeah.
But this still allows you to like walk it around, heel toe style,
Okay.
catch your balance.
So it's mostly freestyle is the reason that it's implemented
Okay,
for the round end.
freestyle decides the shape,
Okay.
pretty much.
Yeah.
But the other thing that happens with the square tail, stubby tail, is you get super solid, consistent, stable pop. So when you're doing a 3-shove, it's super stable. When you're doing impossibles, it's super stable. When you're doing tray flips, it's super stable.
Because the angle's not always changing. It's like a little bit more mellow.
And it plays into the factor that you can still wear in your board until it's something better. Like you have something to wear out until it looks like a normal tail. So what's interesting about this board is it has a longer wheelbase than normal. So normally it's a 14.25 wheelbase. This is a 14.5.
Okay.
So very slight difference. But the dramatic change from my other board is it's on the same press as the normal boards.
Yeah.
So the nose and tail, their kick actually starts at the same spot as if the wheelbase was smaller, which means that when you're popping, your nose is still exactly where you think it is in your brain, but your trucks are more spread out, so your pop is higher.
Interesting.
Because your trucks are closer to your tail.
Yeah.
So you have more pop, but you still have that consistent feeling that you're familiar with. On my older shape, the larger one, this is up here. Like the truck is up and this is up. Like on your board.
Yeah.
So your board, I think, is
875.
the same press as my 913.
What I like about that having the smaller wheelbase but having it being pressed like that is there's something very nice about having a wider wheelbase when it comes to ollieing on transition because the timing is slower. So like when I would ollie with my smaller board, the 8.5, it was definitely, I felt more like rushed. Like, okay, here's the coming snap. Whereas this, there's like, it's far enough apart that I can lift my front truck up as I'm coming to the coping and I have that extra millisecond to snap. So to be able to get that feeling without dealing with the boat of having a much bigger board is kind of ideal.
Yeah.
Like having a longer wheelbase and then a shorter board, I think is almost possibly the future of board shapes. Like me and Bev had a long conversation about like, yeah, I don't know why more people don't do longer wheelbases with just a shorter board.
Yeah.
Because it is a steeper tail, it is a steeper nose, so it does snap faster, and the timing is more forgiving, in my opinion.
What you're talking about is the balance of finesse and pop.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you have a larger wheelbase, you have more finesse, and when you have a smaller tail, you have more pop, and those are counter opposites. But if you keep the same size board and spread out the trucks, you're adding to both of those. Yeah, so that's very hard to verbalize, and thank you, Dan, for bringing that into the group consciousness.
No worries. Well, because to me it seems like that's what this entire board's about. You're trying to find the sweet middle ground for a nose and a tail to make it symmetrical. You're trying to find the sweet spot of having wider wheelbase with a shorter board, so it's like less weight to throw around, but you have the perks of it having like a longer wheelbase. It seems to me that you're trying to like crunch in all the things that people might like about something into one board and come as close as you possibly can.
The one thing you said that I disagree with is that you think that I'm taking other people into consideration. When I
No, I know you're completely selfish. He wants this for him. I know that.
Yeah, this is my development of my skateboarding.
Yeah. I think you're the perfect candidate for this, though, because since you skate everything, I always describe Andy Anderson as someone who, he's a freestyle skateboarder who approaches transition and street skating with a freestyle mindset, but that's still, you still have to consider street skateboarding, rails and stuff like that, as well as transition skating. So I think it's, you know, it makes sense that, because freestylers usually pay more attention to board shapes, I feel like, than anyone else. Is that true, what you said?
100%.
Yeah.
Like with bowl, it's you and your board versus the bowl.
Yeah.
With street, it's you and your board versus the world, like that cop right there.
Yeah.
But with freestyle, it's you versus your board.
Yeah. So you want that board to like contour to what is comfortable to you as much as possible. So
in street, you're like, I don't like this handrail, let's go skate a different one.
Exactly.
In freestyle, you're like, I don't like this board, let's shape it differently.
Yeah.
This is really, at the simplest, at the heart of this is my take on a popsicle stick deck.
Yeah. This is your version of a popsicle. This is your version of a modernized skateboard.
Right, like I would never make a board where the nose is larger than the tail. I wouldn't make a board where it's not centered. And I wouldn't make a board like if I could design a popsicle stick deck, if those didn't exist, it wouldn't have come into my brain. So I'm trying not to be influenced by that.
Yeah.
Like this is what makes sense to me in my elevating my skating in the way I want to. I needed a smaller board. And then I can go back to my other board and learn all the same tricks. If you don't have a freestyle board, it's hilarious how many tricks you can do on a freestyle board that you can't do on your regular board. And then you go back to your regular board and you can do it.
One thing that I wish that I captured, because I mean, obviously we film videos together all the time, and off camera, I was watching him feel out this skateboard because he was getting different versions of that board sent to him.
This is the 14th one.
Yeah, the 14th version of this board till he got it right, and like watching him be like, oh, this works like this now, and like, oh, this is such a more cozy spot to be like this. It was like funny watching him see how it works and what he doesn't like about it, because he was very verbal about it. He was just like, oh, well, I gotta like niche this because this trick's not working. So like the fact that you went through like all that effort and like you come out with, in my opinion, a skateboard that's much less intimidating to the public, because I feel like your other board, don't get me wrong, I actually liked your other board, but it had so much to it, whereas this board is like a very simplified, like I would ride this board no problem. And you know, I like big noses. This is like close enough to something that I would actually ride.
The main thing that threw people off that was so intimidating about my last board was the hips.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like having it so that the rails aren't straight, but they're still just as wide at the front and back. And that whole concept is about balancing the board.
Yeah.
So if your nose and tail are the same, they're unnecessary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like imagine a regular board with a bigger nose than a tail, then the hips would be in the front. Like it's just,
Yeah. No, it was a lot. I mean, that was the weird thing about skating your old board too, was the first time I ever skated was at El Sereno, and you were like, oh, you've never tried my board, try it. And like you look at this thing and it doesn't look like a regular board, and then all my tricks were already there though, because it was balanced the same way. And when I stood on this, it was the same thing except for, since I'm used to that wheelbase with my bigger board, but it felt so small under my feet that I felt like I could just like if I was gonna do a double flip or a triple flip, it would be on something like that. A wider board with a shorter wheelbase. Like I felt like I could like really take advantage of a board that small with the wheelbase like that, like coming from like a cozy spot.
and it's not a small board either.
No,
It's
no.
just small for me.
Okay, and the one size is,
It's 8.7 at the middle and 8.5 where the trucks are.
okay.
So it's arguably an 8.6.
I mean, the way I look at that, because when I stood on it, like here's my big thing is I like being able to peek over the side and see my wheels. And you can definitely do that, but with having it a wider middle, it's like more board to land on. But like your stability is still in the same spot because the taper is in right there. So like for that reason alone, because the second I saw this board, when I rode it for a second, I told him, I was like, I've never liked football shapes, but I think I could actually skate this one. Solely because the football of it's not insane.
It's not insane.
It's very slight, because you
It's-
obviously do rails and
It's
primos.
only there for chip evasion.
It's there to make your board last longer, basically.
But what's
Here.
interesting is most boards, you see the rails are straight, and then they start to curve out here past the axle. For primos, you want the curve to start on the inside of the axle. Otherwise, it's like this weird. And then on this board, it technically starts here,
Yeah, like in the middle.
but it's all one consistent curve. The straight lines always mess me up on that kind of stuff. It's kind of like my street board, but it's great for bowl and great for freestyle.
Yeah.
But like, it's a more poppable size. I could have just got my old shape and made it into a new size for street. Because right now, I think my old shape, the bigger one, is just a little bit too big for pursuing tray flip lips
Okay.
on handrails.
Yeah.
And then the smaller one is a little bit too small for pursuing. Like, you can do anything on anything.
Yeah, but like, what makes sense or makes it easier, it's going to be harder for you to do like a gigantic air on the smaller one because it's like an 825 version, right?
Yeah.
And just, I love how often you like draw with your fingernail. People probably think you have a Coke nail, but it's a grip tape nail. Like it's just so you can just draw on your grip tape all the time.
Yeah, it's
Like he was mapping out pressure flips in one of my videos for Ray, and he was like, "Oh, you just do it right here," and like drew like a perfect arc, and then Ray put his foot there and it did a perfect pressure flip. It was really funny. I mean, that's the part of me that like likes the idea of you designing boards, just because you can do that. You can draw a line on a skateboard and be like, "This is where this trick is," and that's actually where the trick is. So to have someone like you designing a board, you know what the shapes and angles are. So of course you're going to make one that has the shapes and angles to make skateboarding as accessible or as easy as possible to figure out these tricks, or at least get them more unlocked.
dude, the lines that I see when I see boards is plentiful.
Yeah.
What's absolutely insane about having a twin tip board is not having to think about it. It's such a weird transition.
Oh, someone was saying the other day, because he was riding this shape with his old graphic, and they're like, "Oh, Andy's skating his board backwards, does he know?" And I'm like, "Oh, that board doesn't have it backwards." And like, it's so much like not having it, you don't plan it. He doesn't have any lines on his board. He literally will skate his board either way. You would think one would get more razor than the other, or they would wear out differently, but if you actually are not paying attention, it's going to be relatively close to 50-50.
If you get this board, I suggest getting brand new trucks and no graphic grip.
So you can just get lost in what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because brand new, like if you're riding your old trucks, you're just gonna get set into the ways.
Oh, I didn't even think about that, because your front truck is, you know, the looser one, your back truck's the tighter one, or whatever,
Yeah.
however you ride your board. It's surprising that skateboards weren't like this, like, from the get-go. You know
Well,
what I mean?
it's so funny, dude, because the reason they're not is because of the Swiss Army thing. Like, people think that they need a nose for this and a tail for that.
Uh-huh.
And you, like my other board is designed to be like, this is perfect for this on this side. This is perfect for this. This is more of a blend.
But you still run into the wall of, okay, well, I did a shove it,
Right, and
now
like,
everything's wrong.
I just don't understand, like, how is this such a subtle difference, but so important to people?
Yeah.
Like, I really feel like skaters are, if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality.
Yeah, and I come from that, because like me, I can't stand twin shapes. Yeah, I'm a sucker for the old shape, but I'm gonna ask for one of these for the next box and see how I feel about it, because it seems like something I could really get into.
They come out on the 19th.
Yeah, the 19th of this month.
Yeah.
So by the time this video comes out, they're probably already out.
The first ones I was doing were 2 footballed. They tray flipped amazingly.
Oh, I bet.
But when you do a nose slide, your toe and heel was hanging off. Super hard to get a football right.
Yeah. You'd be nose sliding like Paul Shire in fucking 1999, just the smallest board dragging your foot.
Dude, it's insane. So, like, finding that balance, and then the concept of having one solid curve just had to be out there.
Yeah.
Balance, man. I'm all about balance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's your obsession. You just
That
wanna
is
balance
like,
everything.
that's what I love about life.
Yeah.
Is balance, emotional, physical.
Fucking Thanos over here. The power gauntlet, but instead it's like freestyle, vert, street. You're just obsessed with balance.
But here, we got these 3 boards. Oh, hey, sorry, my bad. Oh, you're chilling. We're just making a little. So that's your board. That's the Solomon Aga.
Yep.
And that's longer and wider, right?
Yeah, 875.
And then this is Vic's board, 825. So this board and this board are on the same press. So the nose and tail are at the same spot. But on this board, if I line up the tail, the nose is in front. So that means when you're ollieing, like, compared to that line, which is in line. When you're ollieing, you have that much further before you actually hit anything with your foot.
Yeah.
But you can see that this distance here is longer than this one. Sorry, I'm just graphing out physically what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
About how you get more pop when the truck is closer to the kick, less pop, more pop, but you get better flick when these are closer together. So the less you have to move your legs before you hit the nose, the less effort you're putting into your tricks, the more efficient you are.
Do you like this board more than your old shape, or is it just like a different thing? Like you said before, this is your street board, if anything. Like this is angled towards street. So do you prefer this for street over your old board, or do you have different places in your heart for both of them? Do you think you're still gonna skate your old shape?
I prefer this board for street, for sure.
Yeah.
My old board I still prefer more for freestyle. And then in bowl, I could go either way.
Well, with your last shape too, it seemed like you knew what the functions were, and like, you know, I want this and this and this. This will make the best board for me. But for this, it's like you're looking for stuff that you don't know.
Yeah.
Like you were trying to find something new that could be better,
Right.
and you feel like you found it.
Yeah, I feel like this board is helping me with my flip tricks. And my flip tricks were never my main goal
Yeah.
until more recently, when I realized how much of a weakness of mine they were. And like, I always kind of find inspiration from avoiding flip tricks. Like, what else can you do?
Yeah.
But
Well, now it's time to like mix them together in the bowl.
now it's time to mix it together. It's funny, man. It's funny how my skateboarding's developed, and just the absolute blessing of George Powell in my life, encouraging me and blessing me through me going through these different stages of my skateboarding and experimenting with different products, and like even the wheels, dude, the dragon wheels. Day one I got on Powell, I was asking for softer wheels, you know, that
Yeah.
slid, and he was sending me them. I have buckets, like I have like huge Tupperware bins full of wheels
Yeah.
from like years ago that were all pre-dragon wheels.
Well, that's one of the coolest things about Skate One Distribution is you have someone like George who like likes to experiment and is constantly trying to make a better product. That's why we have Bone Ceramics. That's why we have the Dragon Wheels. That's why we have the Flight Decks. He only wants to make the best. So to have someone like you being like, I want the best for me, like what other company would you want to try to do that with,
and
you know?
George designed fucking airplanes.
Did he really?
Yeah, dude, he's an aerospace engineer. Like, he like knows what the hell he's doing in engineering and in product development. Skateboarding is so far below his capabilities. Like, George is way up here and he's coming down to make skate stuff. The Dragon formula, I keep going to him, I'm saying, dude, what other industries could benefit from this? Like,
Yeah.
you just made a new urethane.
Yeah, right?
Like, have you thought about like what kind of softer like for, I didn't even know what.
Some sort of belt for something?
Yeah,
That
like,
has more slip so it
and he's
doesn't
like,
rip.
no, it's for the skaters. you
Yeah.
know? Could be life-changing discoveries, and it's just, he's squishing all of it into skateboarding. You know what blew up the Dragon wheels is freaking Raj video. That was not planned. Like when I showed George that, he was so stoked. Like I was literally having food with George when Raj called, because there was like a video chat in that thing. And George was like, yeah, go outside. And then later he's like, whoa, that was the call.
I mean, I think that's just a testament to like, if you build it, they will come. I mean, if you make a product that's going to allow certain things, people are going to want to get their hands on it.
That's George's mentality.
Yeah, if I build it, they will come. But that's the other thing I kind of like about PAL is they've definitely never tried to be the cool company. George just wants to make the best product.
If you build it, they will come. And then everybody rips off the products that George has made. I hope the Dragons have made a quick enough impact so that if and when other companies start making the same thing and they start marketing it better, doing all these things, that
the cool people ride for it.
Like that people will get in their brains that they wouldn't have made that unless George made this push saying it's an option.
Is there anything else that you're, obviously we're not going to talk about it exactly, but is there other stuff that you're like working on with George that's going to be like other things?
The
like
amount of projects that we've been working on is insane.
Yeah, I know about a couple of them, that's why I asked, but yeah, there's some stuff coming out.
Game-changing stuff. I'm super stoked on my new board. I hope you've noticed my skateboarding has gotten better.
I mean, the amount of flip tricks you do just cruising down the street is like the big thing that I notice. You seem much more, I don't want to say mainline comfortable, but like in between his freestyle routines that he used to do from street to street, it's also like I'm kickflip manual, kickflipping out, just crossing the street.
And dude, for me, like learning my nollie tricks and knowing that I can do them on the tails.
Switch Andy, it's coming.
And then when you're riding fakie, you don't have to pivot anymore. You can just body varial.
Yeah, you're already there automatically.
Yeah,
that is what I like about it. You're already home.
Yeah.
No matter where you are on the board, you're already home.
And why not? Because you didn't see a tail you'd like to see as your nose? Are you really that? Did you really brainwash yourself that gnarly?
I did. I am. I still like the both. I like the nose and the tail. But I will try this. I will give this an honest review.
Well, I just mean like you like your tail as your tail, and you like your nose as your nose, but you can't imagine a tail that you would like as a nose.
Wait, what's on the other side? Is that like the blueprint?
So, George, the other day, me and Nigel took a day off and we filmed a video about the aspects of the board, and George asked me to write down all the little things.
Oh my god.
So if you see the ad that...
Are you the Zodiac Killer?
What? So the graphic, full moon, shining, you know, I've always been a moon child. I feel like that means more than I meant it to mean. I don't know, maybe some people are moon children, I don't know, but I always loved the moon. That's what I'm trying to say.
Do you always
pay attention to it.
Do you always ride your deck rails curved like this?
No, I just enjoy experimenting with it. When your deck rails are curved like this though, your concave is bent like this. So from this view, this point is actually lower than this point, so it'll help you balance your board slides. And then usually when I grab, it's more in the center anyways.
That makes sense.
So they're closer out. And then usually when I do the tweak stuff, it's more not in the center. So for me, it's just the ideal setup. Yeah. But one thing that's cool that I got to design on this was this and heron. You know, it's a little and symbol, a little ampersand for Andy Anderson, because we were trying to get away from having Anderson on there.
Do you know how long it took for me to, someone brought it up to me, they're like, it's so funny that he has like the same name twice. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, Andy Anderson. And I was like, I just never realized that.
My real name is Anderson. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't.
No, my name is Andrew.
Yeah, sure, whatever you said. Anderson.
I was told that this curve is equivalent to a 200-foot circle.
Like, what a random fact to throw in there.
And this curve is very important. From here to here is a carbon copy of my last board's nose. And then from here to here is carbon copy of my last board's tail after a month of wearing in.
Yeah, get out of the video.
No, I don't want to be in the video.
Too late.
I was going to post Andy's address on the PAL Instagram.